You wake up on a freezing morning and immediately start to shiver. To solve this minor problem, you quickly turn up your home thermostat. Next, you wrap yourself in a soft blanket and brew some hot coffee. Our modern houses are amazingly well insulated against the bitter cold. We safely survive freezing seasons without ever thinking about it. But biologically speaking, this cozy winter comfort is a total lie. Homo sapiens are fundamentally warm tropical primates to their core. Unlike wild polar bears, we do not possess thick protective white fur. We also completely lack the thick oily blubber layers of walruses. Our primitive ancestors did not have the dense warm wool of mammoths. Physically, humans are totally naked and vulnerable to cold winds. An unprotected human left outside in a blizzard will die in minutes. Our soft bodies are simply completely mismatched for sub-zero snow. Yet, our fragile species successfully conquered the entire planet. We walked directly into freezing lands and set up permanent homes. Ancient humans survived the most brutal ice age in Earth's history. They lived alongside massive woolly mammoths and fierce saber-tooths. Gigantic glaciers covered huge parts of our planet with heavy ice. A single wrong decision during winter meant certain painful death. They constantly had to find rich food and shelter in a frozen land. There were absolutely no grocery stores or warm puffer jackets then. No one could simply turn on a heater to warm up their chilly room. Our ancestors had to actively outsmart the brutal laws of physics. A single frozen night could easily destroy a whole human community. Yet we managed to keep our internal body fires burning through it all. How did these fragile tropical apes avoid freezing to death in the snow? They built complex shelters and engineered custom winter clothes. Our early ancestors developed brilliant evolutionary survival tricks. Many of those ancient behaviors still remain deeply buried inside us. Your modern body is running a prehistoric cold survival program. We still react to the winter season exactly like our ancestors did. To fully understand this deep connection, we must travel back in time. Imagine standing naked on a freezing plain 40,000 years ago. The brutal wind of the Pleistocene tundra instantly hits your skin. In this harsh environment, your warm body is under constant attack. Basic physical laws were actively working to freeze you solid tonight. Without clothing, a human body loses its vital warmth incredibly fast. Thermodynamics dictates that heat always flows from hot to cold things. The freezing sub-zero air acts like a giant sponge sucking your life. Your core internal temperature begins dropping at a dangerous rate. Within a few hours, your heart struggles to pump blood to your brain. Prehistoric survival was not about simply finding a cozy dark cave. It was an active, high-stakes battle against relentless cold winds. Every single morning was a race to keep your internal fire burning. If you stopped moving, the freezing environment drained your life away. Our early ancestors had to find a way to insulate their fragile skin. Daily life forced them to balance their metabolic budget carefully. Gathering firewood forced them to spend valuable calories in deep snow. Shivering consumed precious food energy during freezing winter nights. You could not afford to waste a single calorie on pointless activities. The physical math of Pleistocene life was brutally simple and lethal. If you burned more energy than you consumed, you perished in the cold. This meant humans had to think like highly advanced thermal engineers. These clever clans learned to capture and hold the heat they generated. Nature had completely refused to give us built-in winter protection. Our thin epidermis offers absolutely zero defense against deep frost. We must marvel at how these ancient families survived this nightmare. They stood face to face with a climate that was designed to kill them. Yet, our fragile species refused to simply roll over and die out. Instead, they designed brilliant solutions to defeat the Ice Age cold. Unique clothes acted as advanced shields protecting vulnerable skin. These early inventions forever changed the global course of history. Their greatest survival breakthrough was a tiny and unexpected tool. To see how they conquered the freeze, we must look at their clothing. Scientists eventually discovered a tiny and highly unexpected object. This simple piece of shaped animal bone was actually a sewing needle. Simply throwing a heavy bearskin over your cold body is not enough. A freezing winter wind easily slips right under any loose blankets. Cold air currents rapidly steal the thin layer of warmth on your skin. Our clever ancestors had to lock this precious pocket of heat inside. They needed a way to sew tough hides together with absolute precision. This was the exact moment when the simple bone needle changed history. Early craftsmen drilled a tiny functional eye directly into the bone. Using tough animal sinew as thread, they could bind skins together. Ancient families no longer had to drape loose hides over themselves. Now they could cut and stitch heavy fur to fit their physical shapes. This clever tailoring created the very first airtight thermal seal. Our ancestors were not just making basic protective winter clothes. These clever clans were actually engineering portable microclimates. A layer of warm air remained permanently trapped next to their skin. Humans successfully stole the highly insulating fur of apex predators. They precisely tailored these heavy wild materials to their own bodies. Wild wolves and massive cave bears already possessed thick winter armor. Our fragile species had to borrow this defense to withstand the cold. Without the needle, we never could have populated the freezing north. Unprotected sapiens would quickly perish under the heavy Arctic snow. This single invention allowed our species to push into frozen lands. Early families designed insulated parkas, heavy trousers, and boots. These specialized garments successfully kept freezing moisture out. Wet skin in sub-zero weather will instantly lead to rapid frostbite. Ancient hunters learned to layer fur with the hair facing inward. Such clever methods created millions of microscopic insulating pockets. Human survival now depended entirely on this custom clothing design. These tiny bone needles quickly became their most highly valued assets. Lost tribes buried these precious sewing tools directly with their dead. But keeping this body fire burning also required a massive fuel source. Under 3 feet of freezing snow, finding wild berries is impossible. Green plants and nutritious roots completely vanished under the ice. To fuel their internal fire, humans required massive energy sources. Eating only raw lean meat was actually not enough to keep them alive. Too much pure protein without fat quickly poisons the human liver. Prehistoric hunters became deeply obsessed with thick animal tallow. This highly concentrated substance offered the ultimate energy boost. They targeted massive prey beasts specifically for their heavy fat. Giant woolly mammoths carried incredibly thick layers of rich blubber. But the absolute ultimate prize lay hidden deep inside the skeleton. Solid limb bones were packed with rich, calorie-dense yellow marrow. Early families used heavy stone tools to violently smash them open. They greedily sucked out the creamy marrow to survive freezing nights. This oily, caloric fuel successfully kept their body heat roaring. Our intense craving for greasy fast food comes directly from this era. Your ancient brain still associates fat with surviving a deadly winter. You desperately crave warm, salty pizza whenever the weather drops. Your modern system is actually running an ancient survival protocol. Prehistoric clans could not afford to waste a single drop of grease. For these early wanderers, calorie density was a matter of survival. Bringing down a massive woolly rhinoceros provided a giant feast. Every single bit of the carcass was meticulously carved and stored. The freezing environment acted like a massive natural refrigerator. They buried precious fat caches directly deep inside the cold snow. This frozen food security buffer saved entire clans from starvation. Melted animal fat was also regularly burned in crude stone lamps. These tiny flickering lights chased away the endless winter gloom. Grease was truly the most valuable currency in this frozen world. Having custom warm clothing meant nothing if your stomach was empty. Early humans had to master both complex thermal tailoring and diet. Yet finding a safe place to rest was still a terrifying challenge. To survive the brutal wind, they built fortresses using giant bones. Imagine walking across a frozen plain with no caves or trees in sight. You desperately need a strong shield against the howling Arctic wind. Clever families solved this major crisis using an unexpected resource. These clans built sturdy shelters out of the very giants they hunted. Massive bones from woolly mammoths served as a heavy structural base. Experts found geometrically perfect huts made from massive skulls. They utilized heavy lower jaws as the dense foundation of the walls. Interlocking tusks were carefully woven to form a solid ceiling dome. This bone scaffolding created an incredibly strong protective sphere. Large animal hides were tightly stretched over the entire framework. These heavy skins acted as a massive insulation layer to trap warmth. Glacial winds could not penetrate this highly specialized structure. Each dome served as a heavily insulated fortress against the cold. Inside these shelters, clans huddled together for shared body heat. They created their very own comfortable oasis of safety in the snow. Entire communities gathered to live in these bizarre skeletal homes. Building just one of these structures required incredible hard labor. It meant hauling massive mammoth skulls over several miles of ice. One single adult skull could easily weigh over 400 pounds, yet they gathered hundreds of bones to complete a single village. This level of heavy physical engineering shows profound intelligence. Our early ancestors were not merely trying to survive from day to day. They actively dominated the environment through complex cooperation. These permanent camps served as the literal hubs of ancient culture. Families painted raw designs directly onto the flat-boned surfaces. They carved elaborate animal patterns to celebrate successful hunts. Such warm homes made living in the freezing north totally possible. These heavy protective domes truly represented the peak of engineering. Sapiens conquered the Pleistocene winter through collective creativity. Modern humans owe their very survival to these ancient architects. They completely bypassed the physical limits of our fragile anatomy. Keeping these cozy bone fortresses warm carried a highly deadly cost. Bringing a blazing campfire inside a tight dome was very dangerous. Dense wood smoke quickly filled the small, windowless living space. Ancient families had to breathe in highly toxic carbon monoxide gas. This silent poison slowly accumulated inside their delicate lungs. Heavy black soot settled onto the beautiful ivory wall structures. Modern scientists recently analyzed the ancient ribs of Ice Age clans. They discovered shocking proof of severe chronic respiratory issues. Almost every single adult skeleton carried deep traces of lung disease. These prehistoric hunters were literally inhaling pure poison daily. Staying warm meant slowly destroying your body's internal machinery. Poor ventilation transformed cozy fortresses into toxic gas chambers. Breathing in dense soot and sticky tar caused permanent throat pain. Vulnerable infants slept right next to these smoky subterranean fires. Prehistoric infant mortality rates likely spiked from this toxic air. Gathering closely around the winter fire was physically very stressful. A person's front baked near flames as the cold wind froze their back. Such massive temperature differences were deeply exhausting for cells. Yet, putting out the glowing coals meant instantly freezing to death. Families actively chose to slowly poison themselves just to stay alive. This harsh survival system was a terrifying game of body trade-offs. Regular inhaling of charcoal fumes acted as a brutal genetic filter. The strongest bodies and toughest lungs survived to pass on their genes. Only those with robust respiratory systems made it through the cold. Evolution actively forced us to tolerate high amounts of indoor smoke. Neanderthals struggled with this precise problem inside deep caves. Our prehistoric cousins also inhaled giant quantities of toxic soot. This toxic lifestyle went on for thousands of generations of humans. We still carry genetic adaptations specifically built to detoxify smoke. Our modern urban living depends heavily on these biological shields. We survived the toxic smoke, but our closest cousin species did not. Our ancient battle against the freezing cold took a much larger turn. Sapiens faced a highly adapted rival on this vast frozen chessboard. These muscular, cold-adapted competitors were the famous Neanderthals. Those stocky frames were biologically built to endure the extreme cold. They possessed wide and large noses designed to warm up freezing air. In contrast, our own naked species arrived with thin tropical limbs. Physically speaking, sapiens were totally outmatched by the deep ice. Yet, our fragile ancestors survived and these strong rivals died out. Our ultimate evolutionary victory had nothing to do with pure muscle. Instead, it was a battle won through clever technology and culture. Our highly advanced bone needle allowed us to build perfect parkas. By comparison, Neanderthals merely draped loose hides over themselves. Frigid Arctic winds easily leaked through those wide gaping spaces. But airtight stitched seams kept our vital body heat locked inside. Such expertly crafted tailoring saved huge amounts of metabolic fuel. Our ancestors also maintained incredibly broad social rescue networks. Early human groups traded vital resources across vast frozen plains. Neanderthals mostly lived in deeply isolated and small family units. If local food vanished, these tight bands faced absolute starvation. They possessed virtually no friendly neighbors to ask for assistance. Sapiens successfully migrated to ally territories during local crises. This vast social network acted as a highly critical survival shield. Our robust cousins completely lacked this elaborate support system. Consequently, their isolated populations slowly vanished from Earth. Biological adaptation simply could not match our mental flexibility. Human tribes successfully conquered the deep freeze through culture. Our hyperactive minds quickly solved every problem nature threw at us. Yet this ongoing survival battle still required heavy physical tolls. Even with highly advanced gear, our soft bodies faced strict limits. The freezing cold immediately triggers ancient biological protocols. Your clever brain instantly commands all muscles to shake violently. This rapid trembling generates vital kinetic heat to save your system. However, the real internal emergency protocol is far more ruthless. Your body will soon start a violent and desperate race for survival. Even with advanced bone huts, our tropical bodies face deep limits. Freezing Arctic air immediately triggers your ancient survival network. Your anxious brain instantly commands all skeletal muscles to shake. This rapid trembling generates vital kinetic heat to save your system. However, the real internal emergency protocol is far more ruthless. Your biology begins a desperate and silent calculation for survival. Keeping your deep internal organs warm is the absolute top priority. To protect your vital heart, the brain commands blood to leave skin. This thermal restriction traps hot fluids safely inside your core. Tiny vessels in your frozen fingers and toes quickly clamp shut tight. Scientists call this ruthless vascular shutdown vasoconstriction. Crucial warmth is actively drained away from vulnerable extremities. Your exposed nose and outer limbs are the very first parts to freeze. Microscopic ice crystals start forming inside your delicate tissues. This painful cellular damage represents the sudden onset of frostbite. Your survival systems are making a highly calculated core sacrifice. It willingly kills your outer digits to keep the central brain alive. The human body will literally self-amputate to preserve the system. This physiological dynamic reveals a savage thermal calculus in us. Our early ancestors survived the freeze using these extreme measures. Ancient hunters regularly lost their fingers to the relentless cold, yet they boldly pushed forward to secure the ultimate human future. Modern communities rarely face this terrifying level of physical peril. Still, our internal defense mechanism remembers every warning signal. A slight drop in temperature immediately alerts your central brain. Your physiology begins preparing for a long and dangerous winter. An ancient reflex changes how we behave during dark, chilly months. Our deep genetic code commands us to conserve every bit of energy. We suddenly crave incredibly large portions of greasy food to survive. This modern behavior represents a deep prehistoric survival algorithm. Your animal subconscious is convinced a massive glacier is coming. This hidden connection exposes the true power of the winter algorithm. Tomorrow morning, you will wake up inside your perfectly heated room. You might complain about walking several steps to your chilly car. This minor seasonal inconvenience feels like a highly annoying chore. Perhaps you believe you exist completely separate from all wild beasts. But beneath this modern surface lies a far older biological reality. Your deep sleeping brain is running a highly critical survival script. We are still subconsciously terrified of this winter's frozen grasp. You assume yourself lazy for sleeping much longer on chilly mornings. In reality, your biology is actively conserving precious vital energy. Your ancient DNA believes a massive glacier is currently sliding closer. It desperately commands your body to store fat for a thermal shield. This deep urge for high-calorie sugar is actually a survival signal. Ancient families survived on pure fat during those freezing nights. They cracked open mammoth bones to fuel their shivering body systems. Today you possess an incredibly endless supply of rich caloric food. Yet this ancient survival mechanism remains absolutely the same now. We live inside incredibly secure and perfectly warm apartment blocks. You easily regulate your daily room climate with a single button click. We buy stylish coats designed to look fine rather than insulate us. Humans have totally detached their modern lives from the wild outdoors. Yet we still remain highly dependent on ancient biological traits. Underneath our fancy winter clothing lives a very fragile tropical ape. This delicate creature is permanently running a survival algorithm. It is constantly preparing to face the ultimate freeze of the wild. You are not simply a modern person trying to get through this winter. Your body is actually a beautiful masterwork of ancient survival. We easily construct cozy spaces to conquer this cold outside world. But you are still a prehistoric survivor living inside a heated box. Our modern lifestyle is just a beautiful shield against deep freeze. We constantly forget the heavy physical price of our global survival. Our cell biology simply cannot ignore those ancient freezing winds. Thanks for watching this deep dive, and always stay incredibly curious.